राधा कृष्ण को गोपिया श्याम कुंड राधा कुंड की जय, वृंदावन धाम की जय, नवदीप धाम की जय, गंगा माई की जय, जमुना माई की जय, द्वारका धाम की जय, स्वामी भक्तवृंद की जय। और ग्लोरी टू द और ग्लोरी टू द थैंक यू वेरी मच।
Hare Krishna. Welcome all the devotees for today's session on Srimad Bhagwatam. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo
Hare
Bhagavate.
Krishna. Welcome to all duties. Now we start today's Bhagavatam class. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Sachi, there is
Om
echo.
Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskrutyam Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tata Jayamudire Nashtaprayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shlok.
Hare Krishna. Evam jigyasayopahayya uparam etavirajam manah maya arpya sarvage yadyanishodharayitum mano brahmani nishchalam mಯಿ sarvani karmani nirapekshah samachara श्रद्धालुर्मत्कथः शृण्वान् सुभद्रलोकपावनीः गायन् अनुस्मरन् कर्म जन्म च अभिनयन् मुहुः मदर्थे धर्मा कामार्थान् आचरन् मद अपाश्रयः लभते निश्चलं भक्तिं मयि उद्धव सनातने सत्संगलब्धया भक्त्या मयि माम स उपासिता स वै मे दर्शितं सद्भिः अज्ञसा विन्दते पदम्। श्री उद्धव उवाच साधु तवोत्तम श्लोक मतः कीदृग्विधः प्रभो भक्ति त्वयि उपयुज्यता कीदृशी सद्भिः अद्रुता एतान् मे पुरुषाध्यक्ष लोकाध्यक्ष जगत्प्रभो प्रणतायानुरक्ताय प्रपन्नाय च कथयताम्। Translation by His Divine Grace, Abhay Charnarvind, Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada.
Creating Coming to this conclusion of all knowledge, one should give up the false conception of material variety that one imposes upon the soul and the sees one's material existence. The mind should be fixed on me, since I am all pervading. My dear Uddhava, if you are not able to free your mind from all material disturbance and thus absorb it completely on the spiritual platform, then perform all your activities as an offering to me without trying to enjoy the fruits. My dear Uddhava, narration of my pastimes and qualities are all auspicious and purify the entire universe. Arre Bhagwan, a faithful person who constantly hears, glorifies, and remembers such transcendental activities, who through dramatic performances relieves my pastime, beginning with my appearance, and who takes full shelter of it, dedicating his religious, sensual, and occupational activities of my satisfaction certainly obtains unflinching devotional service to me, the eternal personality of Godhead. One who has obtained pure devotional service by association with my devotees, always engage in worshipping me. Thus, he very easily goes to my abode, which is revealed by my pure devotees. Sri Uddhava said, "My dear Lord, O Supreme Personality of Godhead, what type of person do you consider to be a true devotee, and what type of devotional service is approved by great devotees as worthy of being offered to your Lordship? My dear ruler of the universal controllers, O Lord of Vaikuntha and Almighty God of the universe, I am your devotee, and because I love you, I have no other shelter than you. Therefore, please explain this to me." Purport by the Srila Prabhupada. Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Although in previous verses, Lord Krishna has described the lifestyle and approach of the impersonal philosophers who meditate on the distinction between matter and spirit, the Lord here rejects the path of Gyan or speculation and comes to the final conclusion, Bhakti Yoga. The path of Gyan is interesting only to one who does not know that Lord Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, as stated in Bhagavad Gita 7.19. Bahunam jalmanam ante jnanavan mam prapadyate Vasudeva sarvamiti saha mahatma sudurlabha. The words Vasudeva sarvam iti or Vasudeva is everything are similar to the words sarva ge found in this verse. One should know why the personality of Godhead is all pervading. The first verse of Srimad Bhagwatam state, Jalmadi asya yataha. The Supreme Lord is the source of everything. And as stated in the previous verse of this chapter, he creates, maintains, and annihilates everything. Thus, the Lord is not all pervading in the manner of air or sunlight. Rather, the Lord is all pervading as the absolute controller who holds in his hands the destiny of every living entity. Everything is ultimately an expansion of Krishna, and therefore, there is really no other objects of meditation beside Krishna. Meditation upon any other object is also meditation on Krishna, but is imperfectly performed as confirmed in Bhagavad Gita by the word avidhi purvakam. The Lord also states in the Bhagavad Gita that all living entities are on the path of back home, back to Godhead because of ignorance. However, some of them go backward or stop along the way foolishly, thinking that their journey is finished, when in fact they are suspended in one of the minor potencies of the Supreme Lord. If one wants to intimately understand the nature of the absolute truth, one must take to the uh, uh, path of love of Godhead, as stated in Bhagavad Gita 18.55. भक्त्या माम अभिजानाति यावनिह च अस्मि तत्त्वतः ततः माम तत्त्वतः ज्ञात्वा विशते तत् अनंतरम. One can understand the Supreme Personality as he is only by devotional service. And when one is in full consciousness of the Supreme Lord by such devotion, he can enter into the kingdom of God. The word Nanatva Brahmam in this verse indicate false indication with the gross and subtle material bodies. The Lord Brahmam indicates a mistake. It can also mean wandering or rotating. The conditioned living entity, because of his mistake of falling into illusion, is wandering through a succession of material bodies, sometimes appearing as a demigod and sometimes as a worm in stool. The word Uparameta means that one should stop such phase, fruitless wandering and fix one's mind on the absolute truth, the Supreme Lord, who is the true object of everyone's love. Such a conclusion is not sentimental, but is the result of
In analytic intelligence, Jidnashaya. Thus, after elaborately explaining to Uddhava many aspects of analytic knowledge, the Lord now comes to the ultimate conclusion: Krishna consciousness, pure love of God. Without such love, there is no question of eternally fixing one's mind on the Lord. Quoting from the Vivek, Sri Madhvacharya states that Nanatva Brahman indicates the following illusions: considering the living entity to be the supreme, considering all living entities to be ultimately one entity without separate individuality, considering that there are many gods, thinking that Krishna is not God, and considering that the material universe is the ultimate reality. All of these illusions are called Brahma or mistakes, but such ignorance can be eliminated at once by chanting of the holy names of Krishna.
Hare
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. If one offers one's activities to Lord Krishna without trying to enjoy the result, one's mind become purified. When the mind is purified, transcendental knowledge automatically manifest, since such knowledge is a byproduct of pure consciousness. When the mind is absorbed in perfect knowledge, it can be raised to the spiritual platform as described in Bhagavad Gita 18.54. Brahma Bhuta Prasanna Atma na shochati na kankshati sama sarveshu bhuteshu madbhaktim labate param. One who is thus transcendently situated at once realizes the Supreme Brahman. He never laments nor desires to have anything. He is equally disposed to every living entity. In that state, he attains pure devotional service unto me. By absorbing the mind in the transcendental form of Lord Krishna, one can surpass the stage of ordinary transcendental knowledge by which one simply distinguishes oneself from the gross and subtle material bodies, spiritually enriched by loving devotional service to the Lord. The mind is completely purified of all tinges of illusion. Through intense concentration on one's relationship with the personality of Godhead, one comes to the highest standard of knowledge and becomes an intimate associate of the personality of Godhead. By offering one's activities to the personality of Godhead, one purifies one's mind to some extent and thus comes to the preliminary stage of spiritual awareness. Yet, even then, one may not be able to fix one's mind completely on the spiritual platform. At that point, one should really realistically assess one's position, noting the lingering material contamination within the mind. Then, as stated in this verse, one should intensify one's practical devotional work in the service of the Lord. If one artificially consider oneself to be supremely liberated, or if one becomes causal on the path of spiritual advancement, there is serious danger of a fall down. According to Srila Jiva Goswami, the Lord previously explained to Uddhava Jnana Mishra Bhakti or devotional service mixed with the impure desire to enjoy transcendental knowledge. In this verse, the Lord clearly reveals that transcendental knowledge is an automatic byproduct of loving service to the Lord. And in the next verse, the Lord begins his explanation of pure devotional service, which is completely sufficient for self realization. The desire to enjoy spiritual knowledge is certainly a material desire, since the goal is one's personal satisfaction and not the pleasure of the Supreme Lord. Therefore, Lord Krishna here wants Uddhava that if one is not able to fix one's mind entrance on the spiritual platform, then one should not go on simply theoretically discussing what is Brahman and what is not Brahman. Rather, one should engage in practical devotional service to the Supreme Lord, and then spiritual knowledge will automatically awaken in one's heart, as stated in Bhagavad Gita 10.10. तेषां सततयुक्तानां भजतां प्रतिपूर्वकं ददामे बुद्धियोगं तं येन माम upayanti te. To those who are constantly devoted and worship me with love, I give the understanding by which they can come to me. Similarly, in the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagwatam, Lord Brahma warns that one should not neglect the auspicious path in bhakti and instead take up the useless labor of mental speculation. By mere philosophical speculation, one cannot fix one's mind on the spiritual platform. Many great philosophers throughout history had abominable personal habits, which proves that they could not fix themselves on the spiritual platform by mere speculation or philosophical categories. If one is not fortunate enough to have executed devotional service to the Lord in one's past life, and if one is therefore addicted to mere speculation on the differences between matter and spirit, one will not be able to fix one's mind on the spiritual platform. Such a person should give up useless speculation and engage in the practical work of Krishna consciousness, observing himself 24 hours a day in the mission of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In such missionary work, for the Lord's sake, one should never try to enjoy the fruits of one's work, even though the mind is not completely pure. If one offers the fruits of one's work to the Lord, the mind will quickly come to the standard of pure desirelessness, in which one's only desire is the Lord's satisfaction. Srila Goswami state that if one does not have faith in personal form and activities of the personality of Godhead, one will not have the spiritual strength to remain perpetually on the transcendental platform. In this verse, the Lord is definitely bringing Uddhava and all living entities to the conclusion of all philosophy, uh, pure devotional service to the Supreme Lord Krishna. In this regard, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur points out that one who is bewildered by false ego may not want to offer his activities to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, even though this is the actual way of rising above the influence of modes of material nature. Because of ignorance, one does not know that he is the eternal servant of Krishna and instead is attracted by the duality of material illusion. One cannot become free from such illusion by theoretical speculation. But if one offers one's work to the personality of Godhead, one will clearly understand his eternal transcendental position as the servant of the Lord. Those who have faith only in the impersonal effulgent aspect of the Supreme Lord, and those who have faith only in the localized super soul, in the perfect object of mystic meditation located in the heart of every living entity, are considered to be limited and imperfect in their transcendental realization. The process of mystic meditation and impersonal philosophical speculation are both devoid of actual love of God and therefore cannot be considered to be the perfection of human life. Only one who places full faith in the Supreme Personality of Godhead becomes qualified to go back home, back to Godhead. Lord Krishna's pastimes of stealing butter from the elderly gopis, enjoying life with his cowherd boyfriends and the young gopis playing his flute and engaging in the rasa dance, etc., are all auspicious spiritual activities, and they are fully described in the 10th canto of this book. There are many authorized songs and prayers glorifying these pastimes of the Lord. And by constantly chanting them, one will automatically be fixed in smaranam or remembrance of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Lord exhibited his opulences upon his birth in Kamsa's prison, and at the birth ceremony subsequently performed by Nanda Maharaj in Gokul, the Lord further performed many adventurous activities such as chastising the serpent Kalia and many other irresponsible demons. One should regularly take part in the ceremonies commemorating Krishna's pastime, such as the Jalmashtami celebration, glorifying the Lord's birth on such days. One should worship the deity of Lord Krishna and the spiritual master, and thus remember the Lord's pastimes. The word dharma in this verse indicates that one's religious activities should always be connection with Krishna. Therefore, one should give charity in the form of food grains, clothing, etc. to the Vaishnavas and Brahmanas. And whenever possible, one should arrange for the protection of cows who are very dear to the Lord. The word kama indicates that one should satisfy one's desires with the transcendental paraphernalia of the Lord. One should eat Mahaprasadam, food offered to the deity of the Lord Krishna, and one should also decorate oneself with the Lord's flower garlands and sandalwood pulp, and should place the remnants of the deity's clothing on one's body. One who lives in a luxurious mansion as apartment should convert his residence into a temple of Lord Krishna and invite others to come chant before the deity. Here, Srimad Bhagwatam and Srimad Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagwatam, and taste the remnants of the Lord's food, or one may live in a beautiful temple building in the community of Vaishnava and engage in the same activities. The Lord Artha in this verse indicate that one who is inclined onward business should accumulate money to promote the missionary work of the Lord's devotee and not for one's personal sense gratification. Thus, one's business activities are also considered to be devotional service to Lord Krishna. The word Nishchalam indicates that since Lord Krishna is eternally fixed in perfect knowledge and bliss, there is no possibility of disturbance for one who worship the Lord. If one worship anything except the Lord, our worship may be disturbed when our worshipable deity is placed in an upward position, but because the Lord is supreme, our worship of Him is eternally free of disturbance. One who engages in hearing, glorifying, remembering, and dramatically recreating the pastimes of the Lord will soon be freed from all material desires. Srila Goswami mentions in this connection that one who is advanced in Krishna consciousness may specifically be attracted to the pastimes of a devotee in the spiritual world who serves the Lord in a particular way. An advanced devotee in this world may desire to serve the Lord in the same way, and thus may take pleasure in dramatically relieving the service of his worshipable devotee master in the spiritual world. Also, one may take pleasure in spiritual festival performances of particular pastimes of Lord Krishna or activities of other devotees of the Lord. In this way, one can continually increase one's faith in personality, in the personality of Godhead. Those who have no desire to hear, glorify, or remember the transcendental activities of the Lord are certainly materially polluted and never achieve the highest perfection. Such persons spoil the opportunity of human life by devoting themselves to playing mundane topics that produce no eternal benefit. The real meaning of religion is to constantly serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead, whose form is eternal, full of bliss and knowledge. One who has taken full shelter of the Lord is completely uninterested in impersonal speculation about the nature of God and uses his time to advance more and more in unlimited bliss of pure devotional service. In the previous chapter, the verses, Lord Krishna has emphasized the value of surrendering to Him in loving service. One may ask how such surrender or devotion is actually achieved. The Lord gives the answer in this verse. One must live in a society of devotee, and thus automatically one will be engaged 24 hours a day in the various processes of devotional service, beginning with the Shravanam, Kirtanam, and Smaranam, hearing, glorifying, and remembering the Lord. The pure devotees of the Lord can reveal the spiritual world by their transcendental sound vibration, making it possible for even a neophyte devotee to experience the Lord's abode. Being thus enlivened, the neophyte makes further progress and gradually becomes qualified to personally serve the personality of Godhead in the spiritual world by constantly associating with devotees and learning from them about devotional service. One quickly achieves a deep attachment for the Lord and the Lord's service, and such attachment gradually matures into pure love of God. Foolish persons say that the various mantras composed of names of God, as well as all other mantras, are merely material creation with no special value, and therefore any so-called mantra or mystical process will ultimately produce the same result. To refute such superficial thinking, the Lord here describes the science of going back home, back to Godhead. One should not accept the bad association of impersonalists who state that the holy name, form, qualities, and pastimes of the Lord are Maya or illusion. Maya is actually an insignificant potency of the Almighty Personality of Godhead. And if one ignorantly tries to elevate illusion above the absolute truth, one will never experience love of Godhead and will be cast into deep forgetfulness of the Lord. One should not associate with those who are envious of the fortunate devotees who are going back home, back to Godhead. Such envious person deride the abode of the Lord, which is revealed by the pure devotees to those who have faith in Lord's message. Envious person create disturbances among the people in general, who should take shelter of the faithful devotees of the Lord. Unless people hear from pure devotees, it is impossible for them to understand that there is a supreme personality of Godhead eternally existing in his own abode, which is uh, uh, luminous, self-luminous, full of bliss and knowledge. In this verse, the importance of Sangha association is clearly explained. In the previous verse, it was stated that one can achieve the Lord's supreme abode by associating with devotees. Therefore, Uddhava naturally inquired about the symptoms of a distinguished a devotee whose association can promote one to the kingdom of God. Srila Goswami notes that the personality of Godhead knows who is actually a sincere devotee because the Lord is always attached to his loving servitors. Similarly, pure devotees can expertly explain the proper method of devotional service to Lord Krishna because they are ready absorbed in love of Krishna. Uddhava here in request Lord Krishna to describe the qualities of devotional or describe our devotee, qualities of devotee, and ask the Lord to explain the devotional service that the devotee themselves have to as worthy to be offered to the Lord. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur remarks that the word Purushadhyaksha indicate that the Lord Krishna is the supreme ruler of the universal controller headed by Mahavishnu, and thus the Lord possesses infinite sovereignty. And the term Lokadhyaksha indicates that Lord Krishna is the ultimate supervising authority of all of the Vaikuntha planets, and therefore the Lord is unlimitedly glorious and perfect. Uddhava further addresses Lord Krishna as Jagat Prabhu because even in the illusory material world, the Lord exhibits his unlimited mercy by personally incarnating to uplift the conditioned soul. The word pranataya, pranataya, your surrendered devotee, indicate that Uddhava is not proud like ordinary fools who do not enjoy bowing down to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. According to Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, Uddhava mentions that his uh, Anuraktaya are completely bound in love to Lord Krishna because unlike other great devotees such as Arjuna, who sometimes worship demigods in order to comply with social customs or to show respect for their position in the scheme of planetary management. Uddhava never worshipped any demigods. Therefore, Uddhava is prapannaya or completely surrendered to Lord Krishna, having no other shelter. Thus end the purport. Now prayers. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Chakshurunmilitam Ena Tasmai Sri Gurave Nama Sri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Ena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vande Sri Guru Sri Padakamalam Sri Gurun Vaishnavancha Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sahadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Sri Vishakhanvitancha Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschata Deshattarine Vancha Kalpatarubecha Kripa Sindhubevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Sri Vasadi Gaur Bhaktavranda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Dandat Pranam. We continuing Srimad Bhagwatam Canto 11 chapter 11 the symptoms of living entities. Shloka number 21 to 27. In most important point is that only in the shlokas giving the symptoms of the pure devotee and how we achieve all these things by the service of the Lord Krishna. Hare Krishna Dandat Prana Vancha Kalpatarubecha Kripa Sindhu Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Nama. Prabhuji will tell you in some points in short, and then we start Shikshashtak and chanting session.
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna.
Thank you very much, Mataji. So the important point which comes here is wherein Krishna is talking about how narrations of his pastimes and qualities are all auspicious, and how such narrations purify the entire universe. He says that a faithful person who constantly hears, glorifies, and remembers such transcendental activities of Krishna, who to dramatic performance relieves his pastimes right from his appearance, and who takes full shelter of Krishna, dedicating his religious, sensual, occupational activities for his satisfaction, then such person obtains unflinching devotional service. And that is why Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya is what we all start the lectures with every day. That we should be daily, unflinchingly reciting Bhagavatam. Why Bhagavatam? Because Bhagavatam is the story of Krishna and his devotees. And that is why it is important. It helps us to understand the narrations of Krishna's pastimes. It helps us to understand the qualities of Krishna. It helps us to ensure that we are able to purify the atmosphere near us. It brings about more faithfulness in us. And it helps us to remember all such activities. And that is why Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya. Krishna also says that if we are not able to free our mind from material disturbance and absorb in spiritual platform, then we need to perform the activities as an offering to Krishna without trying to enjoy the fruits. And this is what Krishna had actually talked about in Bhagavad Gita as well when he was talking about akarma. So, akarma means that whatever you do, you offer it to Krishna. Then you won't get the results. And your karma bank will have zero balance. Because finally, what is important is to ensure zero balance in your karma bank so that when your decision is being taken about what is to be done about us, we are always in a zero state and we go back home, back to Godhead. Now, this topic of karma, karma, vikarma is very clearly described in Bhagavad Gita. So, my humble request that please go through Bhagavad Gita as a policy every day before sleeping. Actions that are performed in terms of one's prescribed duties, as mentioned in revealed scriptures, are karma. Actions that free one from the cycle of birth and death are called akarma. And actions that are performed through misuse of one's freedom and which direct us to lower forms are the vikarma. So we need to remember this. We may aspire to live for hundreds of years if we continuously go on working, because then that work will not bind us to the law of karma. Otherwise, law of karma is there. There is no alternative way for us. So karma, vikarma, akarma, these are always there. And we need to overcome all these if we really wish to go back home, back to Godhead. And what are the practical tips to do this? Very simple. Surrender completely to Krishna. Krishna himself says this. Sarva dharman parityajya mam ekam sharanam vraja aham tvam sarva papebhyo mokshayishyami ma shucha. And additionally, we have to follow the scriptures, whatever is mentioned in the scriptures. Like Ekadashi is a day which is very dear to Krishna. And that is why we do the fasting on Ekadashi, like today is Shaktila Ekadashi. So we fast for the pleasure of Krishna so that he is pleased. And when we go back home, back to Godhead, he immediately takes up in his service. So let us only go after a knowledge which enriches us and prepares us for our eternal situation. Not any so called knowledge which does not recognize Krishna's activities. Such knowledge is barren and can be taken up only by mudhas, the foolish persons. Those who are really intelligent will always be looking at what Krishna wants and accordingly will try to follow his instructions. And that is where the subsequent question of Uddhava comes, which we are going to be discussing the response tomorrow onwards, wherein he has inquired what is the type of person who is a true devotee, what type of devotional service is approved as being worthy of offered to Krishna. So these are questions which we need to understand. We need to understand whether we surrender to Krishna because we love him and we have no other shelter. So such all things will be discussed further tomorrow onwards. Hare Krishna. Vancha kalpatarubhyacha kripa